What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Presleevables March of the Machine edition. Host, Cedric Phillips, most, Patrick Sullivan. We've done battles. We've done white. We've done blue. We've done black. And now...
the best color.
There he is. He gets it.
Yeah, the best
Red.
one.
A little Red Dead Redemption for you fine folks here. Our top 5 lists will be on the way. As you do know, I, Cedric, am covering the competitive and constructed cards. I'll have my top 5 for that. And Patrick will be doing...
my top 5 favorite designs are what I believe to be best designs. Not speaking from a power level standpoint, although that does factor in a little bit, but more the style design, something that shows some novelty, some creativity, something I think plays particularly well, things of that nature.
And plus for this episode and the other ones, my hair is red. That's how much I like red.
You're ready to go.
There it is. All right, my friend, you get to start as always. Number 5 on your list for best design card.
My number 5 is Hanger Scrounger.
Hanger Scrounger is a 2 and a red, so 3 mana 2/1 dwarf pilot with backup of 1. Whenever this creature becomes tapped, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card.
I appreciate the effort here to explore the range of backup. Most of the cards that we've seen so far are very keyword intensive at the lower rarities. It's here's a combat centric keyword, like trample or flying, and then you put it on the thing or you put it on your own thing.
Okay.
All well and good, but it's nice to show a little bit of the range. This is a great example of that, of what you're actually getting is the ability to kind of unlock a creature and then get to rummage.
Mm-hmm.
And if the creature couldn't have attacked without the +1/+1 counter, that's a really satisfying thing to do. I also like a design at low rarity that has some synergy with Convoke, even though it isn't really loudly Convoke matters, or it's not, how much Convoke does red really have versus the other colors. I can't answer all those questions, but this is a design you could just put in a set without Convoke if you were doing backup. And then the fact that it synergizes with Convoke, I think, is a really nice bit.
The whole Convoke synergy, right over my head.
Yeah, that's what I worry about this video series sometimes, is I'm going to tell you the thing before it happens.
Oh, sure.
Not
sure.
you, but you, the audience.
Yeah.
And also, sweet thing that's going to come up with this is X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So yeah, Convoking. Pretty fun with this card.
Okay. That's number 5 for you. Number 5 for me is a rar. It's a dinosaur. Rampaging Raptor, 2 RR. So it's a 4 mana, 4/4 dinosaur with trample, with haste. You can pay 2 and a red to give it +2/+0 until end of turn. And then whenever Rampaging Raptor deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to target planeswalker that player controls or battle that player protects. So naturally, we have seen a lot of cards like this through Magic's history. Giant Solifuge, I don't know, Ball Lightning, sort of, Skizik, sort of. Now, this one doesn't have trample. Questing Beast, kind of. We have seen 4 mana, 4 power haste creatures. Okay, great. I guess this one does have trample, so that's good. Trample haste. If you've got some extra mana lying around, you can pump up the jam a little bit. And then it kind of has the Questing Beast tech stuff. If I hit you, I kind of get a little something extra over here too with either your planeswalker or your battle that you're defending. I don't think this is like a format defining card or anything like that, but it does continue to give red a little bit of a boost in the power department. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is the curve topper, perhaps in a red standard deck that people are playing on Magic Arena.
I think, certainly it's got the numbers and the keywords. It's looks at a minimum to be a reasonable card. A thing to keep in mind is, like, yes, these designs are good against planeswalkers, and we have, for obvious reasons, haste, trample, and then the text box, all that's good against planeswalkers. Keep in mind with the battle stuff is, like, you choose to put those in your deck. True. You can make this happen. Whereas the cards that are anti-planeswalkers, you're kind of assuming that your opponent has it. This can be a build around as well as a really powerful reactive card.
Oh, that's a really good point. You play this, you give your opponent a battle, and then next turn you play this, and then blow up the battle.
And as we mentioned, one of the early episodes, 4 is the magic number for a lot of the red designs.
Yeah.
Stoke the Flames is an instant speed way to pop it, and then this does it clean.
Yep.
So that, specifically dealing 4 in conjunction with the red battles is thing to keep an eye out for.
And there are 2 red battles that I do like in Invasion of Kaldheim, and then Invasion of Regatha, which has 5 loyalty. Invasion of Tarkir also has 5 loyalty. I think that's the card that you like. And Invasion of Kaldheim has 4. I call it loyalty. It's actually defense. But this card makes a lot of sense. Again, could be the curve topper for red strategies. especially on Magic Arena, where a lot of people like to play. Like the red deck is cheap to build.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right, we're moving on to number 4 for you on your great designer search.
Ramosian Greatsword.
All right, so this is gonna be a 5 mana, 4 and a red equipment. Convoke, gonna make it a little bit cheaper. Equipped creature gets +3/+1 and has trample. Equip cost of 2. Why do you like this card?
So very simple design, but I think there's a lot of really good design principles going on here. I'm personally not a big fan of the low rarity equipment that is when you play this, it attaches to something and then it moves around for a cost. To me, it really starts to blur the lines and starts feeling much more like a creature enchantment than it does a piece of equipment, because so much of the rate is nested in doing it up front, not moving it around. Convoke gives you a way of making equipment, just like any other card type, that has an ability to discount it. So you get the I'm doing it on the cheap experience without it being kind of this like corny creature enchantment masquerading as an equipment sort of thing.
Okay.
I love that this is like the art is doing a lot for me here too. Of this plus Convoke has a feeling of like your friends are handing you this weapon. Very, very cool.
Okay.
And then the last little bit on this design is, what kind of thing would you want on a low rarity design that has Convoke? Well, you really want to attack with the one thing that's left over after you've tapped everything else to play this on the cheap. So being really front heavy and having trample is a very satisfying collection of things to give someone who's just tapped all of their creatures except for one to play this card on the cheap. So again, pretty simple, but I think this is a novel way of doing the cost reduction equipment experience that Wizards clearly has some affection for. I think there's a story here that's pretty cool, and I think the stats and the keyword here are pretty mindful of the user experience in a way that's positive.
Okay. I'm going to go to my number 4. Now, I mentioned this last episode. Red has no shortage of good cards. And this one I didn't find until late. This one's going to be Kenra Spell Spear. 2 mana, 1 and a red, 2/2 Jackal Warrior. Talking about you guys out there. It's got trample, it's got prowess, and you can pay 3 and either a blue mana or 2 life, given that it's Phyrexian mana, to transform this thing, which is only an ability you can activate at sorcery speed. And when you transform it, it turns into Gitaxian Spellstalker, which is a 3/3 Phyrexian Jackal. Trample, ward 2, prowess, prowess. So let's talk about play pattern here first. Turn 2, 2 mana, 2/2 trample, great. Turn 3, pay 3, pay 2 life, transform this thing into a 3/3 trample, ward 2, which means it's hard to kill, prowess, right? Now, Magic has free spells, so triggering the prowess isn't that hard. First card that came to mind for me was Lava Dart. Flashback from the graveyard for free, right? Also, there's the ability on turn 4 to transform this, pay the life, have Lava Dart available, hard cast it, and then recast it, and then you're getting 4 prowess triggers on one card. It turns into a 7/7 trampler with ward 2. It'll be probably pretty hard to kill. I think there's a lot of upside for this card in prowess strategies, but this could also be a 2-drop that works itself into mono red and standard, mono red and pioneer, whatever, and just be really powerful because the double prowess is, I don't think we've ever seen that before.
And I'll tell you, as someone who's played a lot of prowess strategies in Modern, I would pay a premium to get some ward.
Sure.
Part of the issue with the deck is it's kind of easy to pick apart your early threats, and then if that happens, you're sitting there spinning your tires. It's hard to get another threat going before your opponent starts establishing whatever their game plan is. So something that you can play on curve and also pops into something with not only ward, but is super bursty on its own.
Yep.
Very, very appealing card for those kind of strategies.
Cards that we have seen that kind of mimic this a little bit. I immediately think of like Kiln Fiend, right? Where every spell you play gets +3/+0, but like it's very fragile. If you get to untap with it, maybe you get to go nuts, but more often than not, you play a Kiln Fiend and you as the player casting it are just like, please don't kill it. Here, the ward is very, very nice. You don't even have to transform this for it to be good, and trample is nice on a card like this.
Another thing that's lost in the shuffle about Kiln Fiend is even the spots where it survives, your hand has to be pretty loaded and ready to go for that card to be powerful.
Yeah.
This is still pretty good, even if you've just got 2 spells in your hand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as you mentioned, trample is a big boon in helping you fight blockers, which is another thing that prowess strategies can struggle with sometimes.
So that's number 4 for me. Number 3 on your list is
Voldaren Thrillseeker.
All right, 2 and a red. That means it's going to be a 3 mana 1/1 vampire warrior. Pretty modest, though those creature types do matter. Backup of 2. Most backup cards I think we've covered have a backup of 1.
Mhm.
So backup of 2 is notable. And then you can pay 1 generic mana, sacrifice this creature. It deals damage equal to its power to any target. Ember Hauler a Jace.
You know how much I love an Ember Hauler.
I do know that.
And this is super Ember Hauler.
Yes, it is.
Wrong creature type, but we can work with what we got. So again, I much like the card I spoke about first, I really appreciate the fact that it's expanding the range of what it means to back up and what that design space allows. This is there's a weird distribution of a lot of different options that you have here. You have the just play this on curve, and it's basically +2/+2 and haste to something you already had. Plus you have a kind of crappy Mock Fanatic laying around for later, but that's still something you can do something with.
Yep.
You can try to set up a fling style combo setup where you play this on, your Atog or Arcbound Ravager or whatever the thing is and try to shoot someone down in one shot. You can also play just this card on curve as a 3/3 for 3 with sacrifice to deal 3,
Yep.
plus other synergies you can do if you're pumping power somehow or whatever. And all this is at a pretty low opportunity cost. So I like the fact that it's expanding the design space. And also for a card that's relatively simple and can be played just kind of face up, like you don't have to lean into synergies to make this card be productive. There's a lot of combos and semi-combos and synergies that it could fulfill or synergize with that is really stimulating to think about. And I like cards that they facilitate some of the weird stuff, but you don't have to build a super complicated or weird deck to make the card work.
Sure.
Just play this with a curve of creatures. It's going to be good. Do stuff, give you options. Great. But for sacrifice matters, for, trying to pump something up in one turn and shooting it, it can do some of that stuff too.
It looks like a nice card. It was number 6 on my list.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It didn't crack my list because I was like, I don't know exactly what you do with it, but you're speaking to the fact that you don't know exactly what you're going to do with it, and that's also totally fine.
Yeah.
For me, an oldie but a goodie. Stoke the Flames is number 3 on my list. 2 RR, so 4 mana instant, Convoke. Stoke the Flames deals 4 damage to any target. This is a reprint. Some of you might be new here, and that's okay. You and I played with this card quite a bit when it was legal.
Yes.
I think Atarka Red, I think, is where it stands out maybe the most, but during that generation, I think around like 2015, 2016, if memory does serve. Regardless, very powerful card. Almost certainly a shoe-in in the red decks. I'd be surprised if it's not in there in some numbers, probably just the full amount in form, which it was previously. I don't really have a lot of words for this card. It has a history, unlike most of the other cards that we have covered. We've been covering, I think, quite literally every card that we've covered so far in this set review has been new across the battles, white, blue, and black. I almost put Negate in the blue list because the blue cards were so bad, but I couldn't do it. Just a banger.
Yeah. The first time around, though, for this card, it was kind of at a high water mark for token generation. Jeskai Ascendancy was a thing that this card was really powerful with. So keep in mind that, some of the architecture around it the first time was really, really strong and is unlikely to be replicated here. That said, 4 deal 4 instant speed is not that far off from a card you could consider playing. And obviously with tokens, with just your cheap creatures that can attack, you can facilitate Convoke and battles. And the fact that this kills battles outright is another nod towards it maybe being strong again.
It's straightforward. It's simple. Again, it's got a pedigree, and we know that it's good, and we expect it to see, at least I do, quite a bit of play, in competitive formats. Number 2 on your list, my friend.
Marauding Dreadship.
2 in a red, 4/1 vehicle. So you've got a little bit of every part of the buffalo here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got the vehicle in here. It's got haste, but you got to turn this thing on somehow. When Marauding Dreadship enters the battlefield, incubate 2. It's got a crew of 2, so you're basically getting something to crew it with. Why do we like this?
A lot of reasons. I think, a vehicle with haste is kind of different. You don't see that a lot. And the design makes sense for something that has haste. I like the fact that it kind of organically solves what happens when I don't have any creatures to crew my vehicle sort of thing.
Okay.
Because it comes along with something. I think there's also a cool feel of both the game pieces that you receive from this thing are protection against sweepers. You aren't compelled to activate the incubation to crew this thing if you don't want to, but clearly that option's there. You're going to do that some amount of the time.
Okay.
But you could also go the entirely different direction with this and just say this is just pure insulation against sweepers if you want to. Or you can play it on curve, or you can play it on turn 5 and go play this incubate crew hit.
Yep.
So a lot of different modality there. I think the story is pretty cool. Like a Phyrexian pirate ship that comes with an incubator token is like, you imagine a normal pirate ship that has pirates on it, and it's like, what would a pirate ship look like in this world or with these people? Gets that tone across really, really well. So a lot of sweet, subtle stuff here.
I do like with this card from a competitive standpoint, even though I know we're covering on your side, that it's very flexible.
Mm-hmm.
The point that you made, I think, is a really good one, is that you can just play this on turn 3, and it is actually just sweeper protection.
Yeah.
Right? And then they sweep the board, and then you're like, okay, cool, incubate, bash you for 4, maybe do something else, right? And that's actually really, really good.
Or you just go play a creature, turn on my incubation, hit you for 6 is another line that you get.
Yeah. So this has got some flexibility in it. It feels almost like, I don't know if this is a weird thing to say or not, this feels like it should be an uncommon, and it's a common.
Yeah, for a complexity standpoint, maybe they just want a certain saturation of incubation, making it lower rarities.
Okay.
Also, another thing worth pointing out here, I would bet against this probably for constructed, unless there's really a reason to be protecting yourself against sweepers or whatever. Also, a card that could potentially be really good with the red battles.
Oh, sure.
Just 4 power and haste.
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah.
again, that's kind of the magic number.
All right, number 2 on my list, my runner-up for constructed and competitive play is Chandra, Hope's Beacon, 4 RR, so a 6-mana planeswalker with 5 loyalty. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. This ability triggers only once each turn, which is probably for the best. All right, +2, add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Okay, so Chandra is dabbling. +1, exile the top 5 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may cast any instant or sorcery spell from among those exiled cards. Okay, and then -X, Chandra, Hope's Beacon deals X damage to each of up to 2 targets. Okay. There's a lot going on here.
Yes.
It's expensive, number 1. 6-mana planeswalker nowadays needs to be pretty powerful upon impact. First one I'm thinking of is the Eternal Wanderer, which is rather good in standard. Doesn't see a lot of play outside of that format, but when it does hit the battlefield from mono white mid-range strategies, it's not game over, but it is pretty darn good. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think this does that, right? The plus is very nice because you're going from 5 loyalty to 7 loyalty. You're getting 2 mana of any color as opposed to just red mana. So if you are playing multiple colors, maybe red, black, who knows, maybe you're playing Grixis, you can play this, plus it, get 2 mana, go for the throat, 2 things. That's a really good turn. +1, exile the top 5 cards of your library. You can play an instant or sorcery among those exiled cards. Just depends on how you build your deck. And the minus part deals X damage to each of up to 2 targets. So I'm assuming I'm reading this right. I play this, I -3, and I target 2 things, and it deals 3 damage to both of them.
Correct. That's my reading.
Okay, that's really good, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, 6 mana is a lot, but as you mentioned, I think basically the +2 removal spell, kill 2 things.
Yeah.
Now you're at 7 loyalty. They've lost their 2 best things.
Yep.
That's a ton of protection. You also have the play this -3 or 4, kill your 2 best things.
Yep.
And now we're going back to my turn. And then from a neutral board, the passive alongside the +1 ability will either kill someone or generate an overwhelming advantage so quickly that it's not like you have to wait for them to play more stuff into Chandra. You're just going to be able to steamroll them with your extra stuff.
Now, one of the first things I thought of, because I just got done playing a lot of standard, is the fact that you can play this, and there's a Rakdos deck that also plays Invoke Despair. This would copy that. Game almost certainly ends on the spot if that does happen, but I don't think that's impossible at all, given how those games do drag out and how they play. So we're going to see how this set impacts standard and other formats, of course. But as far as the Planeswalker is concerned, I think this has the highest upside of the ones in the set.
Yeah. I mean, the question is just, it's competition at 6 mana. You're going to make a lot of good 6 mana cards, but if your deck is just playing with, I know this card reads pretty fancy, but if you're just playing it with 2 mana removal, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I went to 6 mana for number 2, my runner-up. This guy over here went to an 8 mana spell. Is that correct?
Uh-huh.
For number 1, what card is that?
City on Fire.
All right, 5. R. That's 8 mana. Now, it's got Kinvoke, so it's not actually going to be 8 mana most of the time. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. This is an enchantment. Triple is a lot.
So it makes anything basically lethal.
Yeah.
I'm actually, I'm not rounding this one down to a 0 for competitive play.
Okay.
Just to put that out there.
Okay.
What I like about this is, again, a very thoughtful type of design that to do with Convoke for a couple of reasons. Now, if you just printed this as a card, how much mana would it cost to do triple? I don't know. What is that? 6 mana, something like that. So you could just do something like this if you wanted to at some mana cost. But Convoke is really fun to put on this one because you have the experience of playing this really like busted card on the cheap alongside your creatures. But in that scenario, your opponent has a turn to respond because presumably most, if not all, of your creatures are tapped. So they have a turn to kill the enchantment or sweep your creatures or whatever the thing may be.
Okay.
But the person playing with this card also has the option of trying to play something along the lines of, I'm going to basically convoke this out, and then with my mana cast burn spells. Okay. And then there's no interaction window.
Yep.
So it's a super splashy text box, and I think it's it's in particular a cool text box to give convoke to for the reasons that I mentioned. And you can do the level 1 thing of like basically play it, cross my fingers, hope to get to the next turn, or try to set up some scenario where you're killing all in one shot.
Okay. I don't round it down to 0 for constructed because it has convoke.
Yeah.
You can't round it down to 0 because this could just make its way into a deck, depending on the token, production, and everything else. I wouldn't be surprised if like this somehow made it into a goblin deck.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing with burn spells, you cast this, they sweep you. Do you have burn spells left over? They're dead to those. It's so much damage.
Yeah, it's a ton of damage.
Even like how much damage is Den of the Bugbear on the next turn or whatever?
Yeah,
it's
like
a lot. 12?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of damage.
Yeah.
All right. Number 1 for me. Flying high is the Blood Feather Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
1 in a red. So 2 mana, 2/2 Phoenix. Flying. Blood Feather Phoenix cannot block. Okay. Whenever an instant or sorcery spell you control deals damage to an opponent or battle, you may pay red. If you do, return Blood Feather Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste until end of turn. All right. So, friend of a long time.
Mm-hmm.
When I read this card a couple of days ago, I immediately just said, okay, there's no way you wouldn't play 4 of these.
I would have 4 of these.
Okay. So we have seen cards like this before. They're mostly Phoenixes. Chantra's Phoenix comes to mind.
Yeah.
Right. I think that was like 3 mana 2/2 haste. And then like if you burned them, maybe you paid a red to get it back.
I thought I went to your hand.
Let me check.
I can't remember now.
Okay,
it's been a while.
It has been a minute since I've taken a look at Chantra's Phoenix. But regardless, as I use the powerful interwebs to look this up, we have seen cards like this before. And Chantra's Phoenix, to go back to your hand.
Okay.
So good call. I thought it, and that was a core set card. I thought it came back to play. This one comes back directly to pay the modest cost of a single red. I don't want to say this is the best Phoenix ever because like Rekindling Phoenix was very good, but this is cheap and it is coming back regularly.
So I would rather pay in most formats with most incentives. I would rather pay 2 mana to get a 2/2 flyer than pay 3 mana to get a 2/2 flyer with haste.
Okay.
And I would much rather pay an R to rebuy this than return to hand.
Okay.
Especially because of how those two things scale with the second, third, and fourth copies.
Okay, sure.
So drawing back a bunch of Chandra's Phoenix is really cumbersome. This is like potentially really smooth to bring back multiple at the same time.
Yeah. That's what I'm really liking about this card is this feels like it immediately slots into. I talked about players playing mono red on Magic Arena. This feels like an automatic 4 of. This feels like the best two drop in the deck for sure.
I'd be shocked if it wasn't. Especially again, it's like also good with your battles and against planeswalkers.
Yep.
All the reasons that comes up. Protection against sweepers, like that. Any creature that's cheap is potentially helpful with convoke related matters. And the card's just a ton of rate too.
Yeah.
It does a lot of cool stuff. And also, even if you were just like, I play with 4 shocks and 4 lightning strikes in my beatdown deck and I have this thing, I think this card would overperform. Okay. And I think that you can do better than just 4 shocks and 4 lightning strikes in your red deck that's playing with this.
I would agree. You also get access to Stoke the Flames now, obviously, as well as a card that another burn spell that goes upstairs. There are other instants and sorceries that'll get the job done too. This is, and I've alluded to this over, I feel like each of our episodes, Red needs a power boost right now.
Yep.
At least for standard gameplay. It's more of a splash color than anything. And people have tried to play mono red, but you have Monster Swift Spear, you have Phoenix Chick, which is very lacking. Your 2-drops are just okay. Your 3-drops are like Squee, and it's not really that great in Furnace Punisher. And your 4-drop is Thundering Raichu. I call it Raichu. We are seeing red with the cards that I've pointed out here with quite a boost. Rampaging Raptor could be a 4 right away. Kendra Spell Spear that's another 2-drop that could be really good. Stoke the Flames, I think, almost certainly in, and now this one as well. So red might have just put itself back on the map.
Well, they're in Thrill Seeker too.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, especially if you've got some like 1s and 2s, and the issue with them is sometimes they're pretty crappy against resistance. I mean, like Phoenix Chick with Voldaren Thrill Seeker is like, okay, you can shoot it to deal 3 afterwards, and you can get it back.
Yep.
Blood Feather Phoenix, hit you for 4, sack it, and now it's waiting to come back.
Yep.
And you can also just play Thrill Seeker as just a card in your deck on curve, no synergy. So I'm going to do some exploring.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. Might be time for Big Dan T to get back in the queues and rain hell on you people, because it has been a minute, and there's some juice in this. I've squeezed more with less. I'll tell you that much.
That's true. You've played with way worse cards.
Way worse. You wouldn't even believe it. If you're new to the series, you wouldn't believe the cards that I've won with, and these cards seem quite good to me.
So that is our red breakdown here on the Presleevables March of the Machine edition. If you haven't already, feel free to shoot our page a like, a subscribe, ring the bell, all of that jazz so we can defeat the YouTube algorithm. Of course, if you like our list, if you dislike our list, that's what the YouTube comments are for. So feel free to leave some thoughts down there. If you think something should have made our list that did make our list, or you're curious about our thoughts on a potential red card, again, you can also ask those questions in the comments and we will get to those. If you are not a member of our Patreon, now's a great time to do so over at patreon.com/theresleevables, where you can get early episodes of the Resleevables. You can get some awesome swag from us, depending on what your membership level is. And you can listen to the Unsleeved podcast, which is only available on our Patreon. All the colors are almost done. We got to get to green.
Yeah.
That's the last one. Now, there is a really good Planeswalker in green.
Yeah.
I will say that. The rest of the green cards, I'm not really that impressed with, but the new green Planeswalker might just put green as being one of the best colors from the set.
Do you mean you have pain-free City of Brass plus draw a bunch of cards, plus the ultimate lets you draw your whole deck trivially, plus you can be down with the tokens?
That one.
For 3 mana?
Yes,
That's the 3 mana
for
one?
3 mana one.
We'll talk about it.
Okay, we'll talk about that, and we'll see you guys back here for said conversation.